friends, welcome back. So friends, if you are watching us for the first time, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notified of all our videos as soon as we upload them. And after watching the video, if you like it, click the like button and share the video with your friends and family. So today's topic is 12 most mysterious things science still cannot explain. So the most mysterious, I'm sure there are going to be more than 12 definitely, but the 12 most mysterious things. So pretty mysterious topic. So let's go ahead and watch it.
There's a lot we can tell about an ancient building through archaeology and scientific research. We can tell when it was built, and usually how it was built too. We might even be able to get an idea of what it was used for, but we can't always get all of the answers. Every structure you're about to see in this list is an outstanding feat of ancient construction. And although we know a little about all of them, we're still left with more questions than answers. As a starting point, let's head to the beautiful ancient city of Shravanabelagola in India, which is full of ornate temples carved from rock. There we'll find that all of the most impressive temples have one particular feature in common: stone columns. Using modern technology, we'd have no problem creating these columns. They would be challenging to make, and they would take a long time to build, but we know how to do it. What we're not clear on is how the city's builders were able to create them over 1,000 years ago. As far as we're aware, the people of the time didn't have chisels or lathes, and we don't know how columns like this could be made without them. Every visitor who comes here is struck by the quality of the stonework, and how smooth the polished surfaces are to the touch, even all these years after they were erected. The Japanese have a special word for ancient mysterious structures that they can't explain. They call them kofun. Ancient monoliths designed in this style don't exist anywhere else in the world, so they're actually a particularly Japanese phenomenon. Their name roughly translates as ancient mound tomb, although that only explains part of their purpose. Seen from above, kofun look like keyholes.
Ooh.
The eye of the keyhole is where the grave is located, and we believe the people who were buried in them were of royal descent. The purpose of the remainder of the site is unclear, but they were enormous. The most famous of them, the Daisen Kofun, is 1,500 feet long, 900 feet wide, and over 100 feet tall. That's a lot of space, and we don't know what it was used for. To add to the mystery, we have pictures of very similar structures that have been observed on the surface of Mars. Is this a coincidence? Who can say for sure? Almost everything about the ancient Mayans is mysterious. Some people still believe that the Mayan calendar foretells the coming of the apocalypse in modern times. Of all the Mayan sites that are still standing today, Yaxchilan is the one that will fill you with the greatest sense of wonder. Based close to the Guatemalan border, it's a place of crumbling temples, howler monkeys, and dense, lush rainforests. Yaxchilan is so remote that the only way to reach it is by boat. But it's perhaps because it's so remote that it's been so well preserved.
Oh, yeah.
Nowhere will you find a better looking set of Mayan hieroglyphs or more complete stone lintels. Much of what we know about Mayan language and culture comes from this site, from their self-sacrifice rituals to their religious beliefs. But there are still words and drawings here which seem to defy translation or interpretation. This was a holy place to the Mayans, and a sense of that sacredness still exists within the walls. Carving a huge temple out of a single piece of rock by hand strikes us as the most difficult way of possibly creating a building. That hasn't stopped people doing it though. This is the Kailasa Temple in India, which is the single largest monolithic building in the world. It's been carved into a cave on the side of a mountain, and it took 20 years to finish it. Ancient Hindus performed the labor, which is rumored to have been ordered by a Hindu king who had prayed to the god Shiva to save his wife from sickness and had seemingly had his prayers answered. Work was completed around 1,300 years ago. It's not the only example of such a structure either. A scale model of the Kailasa Temple has also been built in South India, and this one goes by the name of the Tuvan Coil. It's roughly the same shape as Kailasa Temple, and bears many of the same markings. although this one was scraped out of a hillside as opposed to being carved into a mountain. Curiously, Vatuvuncoil is unfinished. It's possible that Vatuvuncoil was intended to be a prototype or test build for Kailasa Temple, but why wouldn't they finish one before starting the other? Baalbek in Lebanon is one of the most famous unexplained monoliths in the world, and if we're honest, we have almost no idea how any of it was built. From the Temple of Bacchus to the Temple of Jupiter, virtually every stone at Baalbek should have been impossible to put into place 10,000 years ago. And yet, here they all are, still standing, and we can't even agree who built the site. Most historians credit the ancient Romans with the work, but some feel that the enormous foundation stones were laid by a lost civilization, and the Romans took advantage of their work by building temples on top of them.
Whoa.
Each of the foundation stones has a weight of more than 1,000 tons, and yet was seemingly cut with surgical precision and then dragged uphill from a nearby quarry to reach their current location. There's an even larger stone back at the quarry,
Wow.
which weighs more than 1,600 tons. But it would seem that even these mysterious ancient builders couldn't work out how to transport that one. Up in the mountains of Crimea, you'll find an ancient cave city known as Mangokale. This is a little-known place with a mysterious history, part of which relates to the long-lost kingdom of Theodoro, an early Christian principality. The caves effectively made a natural fortress. Reaching them would be a difficult task even for the people who lived there, and an attacking army would have had almost no chance. Most historians concur that it was a Byzantine emperor who ordered the first of the buildings to be erected here, sometime around the year 500. That first building was called Doros, which was still in use by the 13th century as part of the Crimean Gothia. 200 years later, the whole kingdom of Theodoro fell to the Ottomans. They purged Mangokale with fire, but the Turks immediately rebuilt it and gave it the name we use today. Only Crimea became Russian territory during the 18th century did the last of the occupants leave, and it's been standing empty ever since. All we have to remember them by today are the ancient frescoes that cover the rock. Once upon a time, Kaunos was a significant port city close to Dalyan in Turkey. Nowadays, it's a forgotten and desolate place,
Wow.
and has been since approximately the year 1500. For 2,500 years before that, though, it was a thriving and beautiful city, where it appears that multiple different cultures lived harmoniously side by side. Perhaps the most striking archaeological features at Kaunos are the ornate tombs, which were carved out
These
of
are
rock.
tombs.
This is a masonry skill that's been almost completely forgotten in the modern world. The multicultural aspect of the site might be explained by the fact that the ownership of the city changed many times over the years. Because of its port and its position, it was a very desirable location for trade, and so all the dominant powers of the era wanted to control it. Most of them got to take a turn. The Romans had the longest single rule, taking control around 2100 years ago and holding it until the 1300s, when it was conquered by Turks. Of all the ancient tombs in Petra, Jordan, the famous urn tomb makes for the most visually impressive sight. Originally, the tomb was created for just one inhabitant, King Malicos II, who died just under 2100 years ago. Although the interior of the tombs appears to have been decorated with a complex pattern, this is all the natural formation of the rock at the site. There's plenty of space inside. It measures 60 feet by 68 feet. Perhaps that's what attracted the Byzantines here 1500 years ago. They came and converted it into a cathedral by flattening the rock and adding 2 layers of vaults. Look up high between the pillars inside the urn tomb, and you'll find 3 openings in the rock, which can't be accessed from the ground. They're all tombs, and one of them still has its closing stone in place. We believe, but have no way of knowing, that if this stone were rolled back, we'd find the remains of King Aretas IV. It takes a very brave traveler to visit the site of the Kipina Monastery in Greece. Built in the year 1212, it's carved directly into the side of a cliff outside Calorites, and is directly above a sheer drop. The location was chosen to be deliberately hard to access. By positioning themselves here, the monks could easily defend themselves from raiders. They must all have had a very good head for heights. Back when it was inhabited, the monastery was dedicated to the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. Nobody is living there anymore, although the fixtures and fittings are all carefully maintained and cleaned.
It's nice.
There would be nothing stopping the monks moving back in tomorrow if they wanted to. Rather charmingly, if tourists want to come and take a look around the Kipina Monastery for themselves, they have to wander into the closest village and ask for the key from the owners of the coffee shop. If you can cope with the narrow path to the front door, you'll be rewarded with some truly breathtaking views. We've already seen some impressive stone temples dedicated to Hindu gods. And here's another fine example from India.
Wow.
It's the Konark Sun Temple, which experts believe was built somewhere around the year 1300. The whole site is an architectural marvel. It was deliberately built to resemble an ancient chariot, and there are several enormous carvings of chariot wheels on the walls. During its heyday, the temple was 200 feet tall at its highest point, and featured stone renditions of horses to go with the chariots. 3 different types of stone were used to build Konark: chlorite, laterite, and condylite. Why do we mention this? Because none of these types of stone exist in the quarries around the temple. They must have been transported in from elsewhere using the nearby rivers. We have no idea why the builders would do this instead of simply using the rock closest to the site. We also don't know why the temple is now only 100 feet tall instead of 200 feet tall. At some point, it's suffered a devastating attack. That might have been down to an earthquake, or it could have been an assault by an invading army. We can make a whole video about the ancient wonders of India, and perhaps one day we will. But for now, here's yet another incredible collection of Buddhist relics. These are the Ajanta Caves, which cover a whole rock face in Maharashtra and took approximately 800 whole years to build. Inside each one of the caves, you'll find priceless ancient frescoes, which are considered sacred artworks by followers of the Buddhist religion. The first cave network here was built around 2,200 years ago, with the companion set finished around the year 600. Despite being built centuries apart, they are remarkably similar, with caves opening up into huge halls whose walls are canvases for religious paintings. Interestingly, the caves have been carved to resemble the design of wooden temples of the time, right down to the fact that rafters and beams have been cut into the rock, even though they serve no architectural function. Although the style of the buildings remains consistent from one cave to the next, the quality of artwork does not. The people who painted the older caves appear to have been better artists than those who came hundreds of years later. Of course, we shouldn't talk about incredible stonework and mysterious constructions without paying at least one visit to ancient Egypt, and so we shall. This is the monumental mortuary temple of Hatshepsut in the Valley of the Kings. Hatshepsut was one of ancient Egypt's most successful queens, and her 22-year reign is thought to be one of the most prosperous in Egyptian history when it occurred some 3,500 years ago.
We've seen this movie.
Perhaps because of the level of reverence her people had for her, the Egyptians of old spent a whole 15 years building her mortuary. Perhaps the most notable features within the mortuary are 2 long colonnades, sequences of columns upon which the great achievements of the pharaoh are recorded in the form of carvings and reliefs. They depict Hatshepsut as a master trader and diplomat who brought fantastic wealth back to Egypt as tributes from neighboring lands. Years later, subsequent rulers of Egypt would try to illegitimize Hatshepsut's reign, declaring that no woman could ever truly be a pharaoh. They tried to destroy many of the monuments at the mortuary, which is why many of the statues are defaced. They failed in their efforts, though. This glorious temple is still here today.
Good. So guys, wow. Half of these places I didn't know about, but what was amazing was they spoke about India so many times. The maximum time that they spoke about a place was India. That definitely speaks for itself, and that really was making me very proud and very happy. And we have done some reaction videos on some of the temples, like Kailasha we did, So I was so glad to see that they're also talking about it here. And yeah, amazing, guys. And when I was looking at all these places, mysterious, where the mysteries are, the best thing that I've noticed was that in all these monuments, they had nice carvings. But the ones in India, oh my God, nothing could compare with it. If you look at this intricate carvings on every single pillar, that was not, I mean, that kind of carving and that intricate work was not, at least was not visible in the video as I was watching it. But oh my gosh, so this just shows that not only in India, the question of how they made these things, there are in around the world too, which is something to think about. Like how were they able to achieve this? Especially when they're talking about huge stones or rocks and how they transported it. Especially in one of those temples that they talked about, they said in India that, I mean, they especially brought different kind of stones and which were not available or were not there around their area, so they specially probably got them using the nearby rivers. But why did they specifically want those kind of rocks in building the temple? That is a mystery, which is amazing, guys. So if you know why that was the case, please do share with us. But overall, a very fascinating video, and it does, make you think like how was it possible. And the best thing was where they said that they made two of them. One was more made before in India, one of the India's monuments, and I think it was Ellora they were talking about. So was it Ellora or Ajanta they were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, where they have excavated everything and made that.
They were talking, no, the one I'm talking about is where they said that they made two caves. The older one had a better quality of
Oh, yeah, I
work
know.
as
Yeah,
compared to the other one.
yeah,
I think it was Elora they were talking about. I could be
maybe.
wrong.
Okay.
So, but anyway, when they talked about it and they said that the
Yeah,
older one was better than the new one, which was like about 100 years, I think
yeah.
they go later. How is that possible? Because as time goes by, things get better. You have more sophisticated technology or ways to do that job. So that is again very mysterious, I would say. So, guys, that is a mystery. So, I don't know. And we do wonder all the time when we watch these videos, like when we had that kind of technology or that kind of advancement so many years back, what happened? Why are we not having it now in our generation? So that's again something to think. But beautiful video, really enjoyed watching this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, a great video, and the key point that these videos bring is that you are looking at something that is extremely old, and how can the structure be built at that time when people did not have these tools? They were primitive at that time. The civilization was not so strong. So, how can people that didn't have chisels and that didn't have proper tools could have built this? It's very difficult for them to build, and they have been built. Even today, as I said, even today building them is very difficult.
Yeah.
One place they showed huge rocks and they said, how can you even do it today? It will be very difficult. But they were there. And so there are only, basic one theory that is logical is that there was some civilization that went away. Either the civilization is no longer available now, no longer alive now, or that civilization was nothing, was an aliens who came, who made a bunch of things, and then they left. When they saw the common public getting a little bit aware, they just left, saying, okay, our work is done. And then the common public started praying over there and made them temples or something. And maybe at the time people saw those murtis and then said these are gods, and that is one theory behind it. But the biggest mystery is that even today, science cannot prove, give all the answers. Not about proving, but give all the answers. As one of the temples they were showing that the rocks were different. Maybe the way they wanted to make the temple that needed a different kind of rock. The rock that
That
was,
means they were so advanced that they knew
yeah,
that this is the
they
only
knew
kind of
that,
rock that can work.
yeah, they knew that whatever they were building, which was supposed to be there for a very long time, and whatever sophistication they wanted to put in this to build it, probably needed a different kind of rock. So they had to get the rock there and build it, because other rock was simply not suitable for doing so. Again, then the point would be, how will they bring so much rocks? From where will they bring? So maybe they had some kind of teleportation capabilities where they could just transport the rock. And the same thing with Ajanta Ellora also, it is said that some there was some technique that the people had where they could transport the rock from one place to other, or even drill the things very easily. So they started with the mass of rock, and they drilled and made this whole temple with a sophisticated calculation. So that will always be a mystery. Now the amazing part was that out of them, most of them were in India. So India obviously has some connection to this, and obviously India is one of the oldest civilizations on earth. And just because of that, you can imagine that the oldest civilization probably had some people living over there who made all these things. And why people think that it is not made by our ancestors is because how could the knowledge have lost? So if you were so good so many years ago, then as the knowledge should have been passed down and people should have become better and better, but that did not happen. At some point you reset and you start again, and then you look at this and say, I can't explain this, right? So reset occurred because today we can't explain it. If they were made by us, then we should be able to explain it, but we are not. So some reset occurred somewhere, and it could be many reasons. That's what we are saying. Maybe this, and that was a very good point that they brought, that after 100 years suddenly the art is not so good. So there were people who were sophisticated. They built the stuff, and then 100 years later, how can this skill go away? So maybe they had left, or they had gone, and maybe there were some junior people remaining who were supposed to clean up or finish the jobs and come back, and they just did a little bit of art and they said, okay, project up, let's go.
But for some reason, the theory of aliens, you can't digest it because it's a little tough to I
Yeah,
mean,
because the only logical thing is that whoever made this is no longer now there. So it could be that all of them died and they are gone, and then everything reset. That also doesn't make sense. So because if they are so sophisticated, the chances of their dying are little less.
yeah, and
Somebody is
plus
so
they would
sophisticated.
pass that talent to their
Children,
son
yeah.
or
Yeah.
daughter, or the next generation.
Yeah.
So that really, I mean, I don't know.
Right, and if that is true, then India should have very huge cities that rest of the world has not seen.
Yeah.
Big. There are palaces, there are forts, but they are nowhere close to what this technology is. So if that was the case, then huge, castles should be there with such sophistication technology that nobody can attack, nobody come. There should be magic and these kind of things. And there was another video that they did where they were the flying
Vimana, yeah, we did a video reaction
of
video.
Vimanas. So where
Yeah.
did that Vimanas go? I mean, we were so powerful. Then nobody should be able to conquer. It should have been a race that is way ahead of the rest of the world. But that didn't happen. Everybody kind of started to have similar kind of abilities and similar kind of structures. And in the modern era, I mean, after we are talking about BC, in the BC, if you look at it, I mean, there was not much. Everybody was mostly at the same level. In fact, the inventions done by the West were greater and faster than us because they were able to make the gunpowder, which was the biggest issue. I mean, of course, they will say China created the gunpowder, but the point was the use of them in guns, where you could fire the guns. Again, guns came from the West, so they had done some kind of research toward, and they had started on the path of science, where they could made a weapon, and that weapon was the key reason why India lost at some point. So I think I would say that there certainly was some kind of very powerful civilization at the time, especially in India, and we don't know where that civilization is today.
Maybe it got because of some reason that civilization got destroyed or just disappeared.
Yeah.
Because in one of them also they were saying in this video that this was probably made by a civilization which is now lost, and we don't know how
so
that
that is, I
happened.
mean,
So-
they have to think analytically and see if the civilization has been lost. Then you have this huge temple is intact, but where's the damage, right? If you look around,
Yeah.
they don't see any damage. So there's no physical damage. So there's no physical damage. Structures are all there. There's no physical damage. You see no, only this is survived. And
but
nothing.
the humans
Yeah.
or the people
So-
who made it are not there.
Yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
it was something unexplainable that happened where they were gone. Because even if they're gone, people will say you should find their remains, but the remains are not. The remains should be preserved somehow after layer. But we all know that everything disintegrates into soil, so very difficult. But they would have done some tests to figure out the composition of the soil to say, okay, there were remains found. But today's technology that we have obviously is not able to answer this question. So we don't know what happened to that sophisticated civilization. If there were destruction, then how come this is alive, but then everything else has been destroyed? So there are many questions that come if you think logically. So something had to happen. They disappeared, and the only logical thing was, on top of all these mysteries, maybe they had the ability to fly and they flew to some other planet or something.
Yeah. Because, that reminds me, one of them was where they showed the key.
Yeah,
and they said that the same kind of shape is also
Mars.
found in Mars. So we don't know.
Yeah, so maybe the civilization went to Earth, went to Mars, went to many places. Who knows?
Who knows?
As the time goes by, I hope that more research
These
is
questions
done
will be answered.
and somebody, science improves, and then we are able to figure out how they made it. Even compare this to the modern. In modern, you won't find such intricate and powerful art. You will find, okay, they are making a tall buildings and they're making strong buildings, and there's architecture where the building doesn't fall down, but there's no such art involved in it that shows complexity of the work. So I think a great video.
Yeah, friends. So something to think about. So do share with us your thoughts and let us know what you think. So guys, we'll go ahead and end this video, and we'll come back again in another video very soon. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
Oh, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so it notifies you when I put in my new video for you to enjoy. Bye!